Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call the Missoula City Council meeting of July 17th, 2017 to order. If you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And please let the record note that with the exception of Ms. Cares, all council members are present this evening. We have minutes for the meeting of July 10th. Without objection, they'll be approved. We will then move on to our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Hands?
We have a pretty packed schedule this Wednesday. We're going to start out with Land Use and Planning from 8:30 a.m. to 8:45 a.m., then Parks and Conservation from 9:50 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., Public Safety and Health from 9:35 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., Administration and Finance from 9:50 a.m. to 10:15 a.m., our first Budget Committee of the Whole from 10:20 a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m. We'll break for an hour for lunch and come back and continue Budget Committee of the Whole from 1 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. And then Public Works will round up the day at 4:05 p.m. to 4:35 p.m. All of those meetings will be here on Wednesday, July 19th.
Thank you, Ms. Hands. Any changes to the committee schedule? Seeing none of those, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on the agenda this evening.
Candy Matthew Jenkins, 1211 Cooper Street. Before going on with the Soviet art of brainwashing psychopolitics, that was read into the record from 1936 to 39 on the House Un-Americans activities. I thought I'd change it up, and I know most people here, at least in this chamber, knows who Saul Alinsky is. And he wrote the book, Rules for Radicals, that he dedicated to Lucifer. And there are 8 points that come out of Rules for Radicals, and I'm going to read them to you. Healthcare. Control all healthcare, and you control the people. Poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you're providing everything for them to live. Debt. Increase the debt to an unsustainable level. That way you are able to increase taxes, and this will produce more poverty. Gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from government. That way you are able to create a police state. Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives: food, housing, income. Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. Religion. Remove the belief in God from government and schools. Class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and poor. This will cause more discontent, and it will make it easier to tax the wealthy with the support of the poor. And this is what we're going through in the United States of America today. And I am ashamed and I am sorry that it has come down to these points, the destruction of America. And it's real, and we know it, and it's talked about every day. So have fun.
Any other general public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Items on that agenda were approved in council standing committees by unanimous vote, and we saved time on Monday evenings by considering these items all at once. Ms. Hands will read the list of consent agenda items aloud, so folks in the audience and those at home will know what we're considering, and we'll take a vote, or we'll take comment before we vote. Ms. Hands.
There are 11 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first one is to approve claims, which are accounts payable in the amount of $931,986.14 for checks dated July 18, 2017. The second one is to approve claims related to the water acquisition in the amount of $264,368.82 for checks dated July 18, 2017. The third one is to approve the Pleasant View Homes No. 5 subdivision, Phase 3, 4, and 5 final plat. Number 4, ratify the setting of a public hearing on July 24, 2017 on a resolution adopting the 2016 Bicycle Facilities Master Plan for the purpose of pursuing a complete, connected, and safe network of facilities for people bicycling in Missoula. Number 5, adopt a resolution relating to curb and sidewalk improvements adjacent to miscellaneous parcels, Project 16-001 of the city's Sidewalk, Curb, Gutter, and Alley Approach Program, ordering in the sidewalk, curb, gutter, and alley approach improvements. Number 6, confirm the mayor's reappointment of Helen Hallenbach and Kia Lisak to the Public Art Committee for terms to begin immediately and expire on June 30th, 2021. Number 7, set a public hearing on August 7th, 2017, and preliminarily approve a resolution relating to a project on behalf of Creekside Apartments, LLC, a Montana limited liability company, and the issuance of revenue bonds or notes to finance all or a portion of the costs of acquisition of a multifamily rental housing project, commonly known as Creekside Apartments, and associated costs under Montana Code Annotated Title 20, Chapter 5, Part 1, as amended. Number 8, approve and authorize the mayor to execute a contract with the Downtown Business Improvement District, BID, to provide garbage and recycling services in the downtown area in the amount of $61,000 per year. Number 9, set a public hearing for August 7th, 2017 on a resolution levying a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land situated within Street Maintenance District Number 1 of the City of Missoula, Montana, generally located in the downtown area in the amount of $101,250 for the purpose of defraying the cost of street sweeping and removing garbage and recycling from streets and avenues in the district during fiscal year 2018. Number 10, adopt a resolution creating the Utility Service Review Committee, USRC, and revising the city's policy for review and approval of requests for municipal utility services to property outside the corporate limits. This resolution supersedes all prior resolutions pertaining to municipal utility service connections located outside the city limits. Number 11 has 2 separate motions. The first is to approve the variance request to the subdivision regulation requirements for paving width and boulevard sidewalk in order to allow the existing 5-foot wide curbside sidewalk and 33-foot wide paved surface width of Raymond Avenue adjacent to the subdivision to remain, subject to conditions of approval number 2, 3, and number 5, and based on the findings of fact in the staff report. The second motion is to approve the Raymond Avenue subdivision lots 2A and 2B based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report, and with City Council's amendment of condition of approval number 5 as follows. Number 5, the subdivider shall abandon the driveway easement for the use and benefit of Lot 2 located at the northwest corner of Lot 2A, subject to review and approval of development services prior to the filing the amended plat.
We made it through. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council members this evening? Anyone in the audience care to comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
On the consent agenda, Armstrong? Yes. Armstrong votes yes. Bentley? Yes. Bentley votes yes. DeBari? Yes. DeBari votes yes. Hedall? Yes. Hedall votes yes. Hess? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Marlar? Yes. Marlar votes yes. Swaney? Swaney votes yes. Von Lossberg? Yes. Von Lossberg votes yes. West? Yes. West votes yes. And Wilkins?
Yes.
Wilkins votes yes. We've got 11 ayes and 1 absent.
And the consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, and the community forum. We do have a report from the Moose Can Gully this evening.
Good evening. My name's Janet Van Dyke. I'm on the leadership team for Moose Can Gully. And I don't see my co-presenter here, Jeff Stevens. He represents 39th Street. On June 28th, we had a joint meeting and barbecue at Playfair Shelter. We had about 60 people in attendance. First, Jane Kelly gave a history and the mission of the neighborhood councils. Then Mark Thane gave a presentation on the new school that's being built in the Miller Creek area that will serve students from Cold Springs. He presented drawings of the buildings and of the grounds, information on the scheduled start, when school would be starting then. We also had a presentation by representatives from Five Valleys Land Trust, who reviewed their acquisition of parcels of land across Deanstone Mountain and the South Hills area that will stretch from Patty Canyon all the way across to Miller Creek. Then Charmel Owens, the city compliance officer, gave a presentation on her role as a compliance officer, how to access her, how her work differs from a police officer's work. And then we had elections for leadership teams for both of our neighborhoods, and luckily we got good representation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Van Dyke. Appreciate that. We'll move on now to special presentations. We have one this evening, so I have been laboring for some time now in an effort to find someone to replace Dan Kemmis on the Missoula Redevelopment Agency board, and as it turns out, he is irreplaceable. I don't often find that folks are irreplaceable, but Dan is. He has been enormously thoughtful as a leader in this community for decades, and his service on the Missoula Redevelopment Agency board was exemplary. Dan asks questions that others may not ask. He offers insight that comes from experience and a tremendous commitment to his neighbors, to his community, and to the larger idea of community, and his work has been remarkable. So it turns out I won't be able to replace Dan. I will find someone who will fill a seat and serve, I suspect, with honor and skill and dignity, but never the way Dan has served. And so this evening we take the opportunity to recognize, against his will, his service and contributions to the city of Missoula as a member of that august body, which is populated by other really remarkable human beings. We have Carl England, who is the current chair of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency board, here this evening to say a few words, and we have a small token of our appreciation for the great work that Dan has done, and we suspect will continue to do in a variety of ways outside of his participation in the MRA board. Mr. England.
Thank you. I'm joined here tonight by my fellow board members Nancy Moe and Ruth Reineking, and staff Jill and her lovely daughter, and Annette and Chris and Todd and Ellen, who you know, to recognize what I hope is a hiatus in what's been a 4-decade-long career of public service that Dan has served as the legislature, as a legislative leader, as the Speaker of the House, as a member of the council, as mayor, and then lastly on our board. And I could, that impressive list in and of itself is one thing to try and list the accomplishments of the things that he did or the things that he made better. Serving in those capacity would take way too much of your time. We're torturing him enough as is. But I want to say that on our board, what Dan did was make our decisions better. He brought his intelligence, great intelligence, and his calm demeanor and his inquisitive mind, and prepared for every meeting and made sure that when we went through our discussions, which actually he's sort of the intellectual leader of that. They give me the gavel, but Dan led the discussion, and Nancy's really in charge. But what he did was just make sure that we always knew what we were doing, why we were doing, how we were doing it, and what its long and its short-term ramifications are. And of course, the result of that is a list of projects of which we are very proud. But more importantly than that, I think the fact that we worked through those with the bare minimum of controversy and never any rancor or drama. And that's due, I think, to a lot of factors: our good relationship with you, our excellent leadership and good relationship with the mayor, the phenomenal work that the staff does, but also because, you don't misbehave when Dan's in the room. And having him there just made all of us smarter. Like the mayor, I worry, now's the time to worry about, oh my goodness, how are we going to carry on without him? And the answer is that Dan's taught us how to do that. If we continue to work together the way we have, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, if we continue to work with you in the manner in which we have, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, if we continue to attract and retain great staff, there's no reason why we can't. And if we learn the lessons that he taught us, and we'd be dumb if we ignored them, we will continue to carry on and do the good work, the fun work that you've entrusted in us, but golly, we're sure going to miss him. And so with that,
We have
something for you. So you have to come up now.
Mayor Kemmis, it's better to do this while you're living. That's the thing, right?
Ellen, you want to explain to others what this is?
Well, it's a print that represents all of downtown Missoula. It's a line drawing that's a wonderful representation, I think, of our city, and you've worked so hard to keep the way it is now, the way it was before. This is by Ed Jenny. And Gene assured me you all would find a place in your house to put it.
And with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Kemmis, if you'd like to make some remarks, you'd be welcome to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, and a special thanks to all of my colleagues, board and staff at the MRA. And thanks to Gene for a lot of very good conversations. If I actually brought any wisdom to the MRA board, it was because I put it through the sieve at home before I came. So thank you, Gene. I knew this was going to be embarrassing, Mr. Mayor, and it was and is, but I had a little talk with myself and said, basically, now, Daniel, if these people that you respect and admire so much are going to take the time and the trouble to honor you, then the least you can do is to feel honored. And so I took my advice, and I do feel deeply and genuinely honored, and also deeply grateful. I could stop there, but I don't think I've used up 3 minutes yet, so I have 2 other things that I'd like to say, and they won't take long. First of all, it seems a little odd, in a sense, to be honored for doing something that you'd gladly pay good money for the privilege of doing. Working with all of you and all of my colleagues here to make Missoula the city that we all take so much pride in is, from my perspective, the most satisfying kind of work that I can imagine doing. But I also want to acknowledge that it's work, and you all know that it's work. Nothing that is worth doing is easy. It doesn't just happen. It takes the work of highly committed, imaginative, and creative people working together for the common good. And there's a name for that kind of work. It's called democracy. Now, when democracy is suffering so deeply, I think it's especially important for us to just take a second and to recognize what it takes to actually make it work. So remembering that brings to my mind the fact that every week you all do that work in this room and down the hall at MRA. And the results of it show in this very fine community. So I just want to say that it's very good work. I thank you all for doing it, and it's been a genuine honor to do much of that work with you. So for that, I thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. So applause are inappropriate in council chambers, but once in a while we let that happen for good reason, and this was a good reason this evening. Thank you again, Dan. Thanks to the MRA board and staff for being here this evening. We hope you enjoy that lovely print. If you need Ellen to point out any sites for you, she'll be happy to do that, I'm sure. So thank you again. Grateful for your service. We will move on, ladies and gentlemen, now back to the business at hand, which is the public hearing portion of our agenda. State law and our own council rules set guidelines for inviting comment in a formal way on a variety of issues. And following a staff report, the council and I will invite comment. Council typically votes on the same evening as a public hearing unless one council member requests that that item be returned to committee for further consideration. Our first public hearing this evening is on a rezoning request at 217 South Catlin, and Ms. Baker has our staff report this evening. Gentlemen, if you'd like to chat, you're welcome to do that out in the hall, but we're having a meeting. Gentlemen?
What, you hear us way over here?
I sure can.
Oh, you didn't mean to offend your...
Thank you.
Your Royal Highness there. Excuse me, I didn't know you were so important. Let's go.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. We have to get down and bow on the floor and bow to you like a...
That's not necessary. You're certainly welcome to leave, however.
Yeah, no problem. There's no problem, Your Highness.
Keep
Look
moving.
at your goddamn pockets while you're at it, you son of a bitch.
Get out.
Goddamn right I'm getting out of here.
Get out.
Fuck you.
Get out.
Yeah.
Ms. Baker, on that note,
Good evening.
would you like to continue with our public hearing?
We will. So my name is Jenny Baker. I'm with Development Services, and this is a request from Damian Corey, who is here this evening. He's represented by Mike Morgan of Hoffman Morgan Associates. Mr. Morgan is also here. It is to rezone 217 South Catlin Street from the existing RM 2.7 residential zoning district to RM2 residential. This rezoning will result in a standard zoning district under Title 20, which cannot be conditioned. This is the location of the property. It is on Catlin, just north of 3rd Street, and the Milwaukee Trail is at the top of the parcel. It's sort of the tail that you see extending off to the left. It's along the northern boundary. This is a closer view of the parcel, which is currently vacant. You can see again the trail along the northern boundary there. It is actually on this property, and there's a permanent easement for it. The area surrounding the property is a mix of residential building types, and there are also some commercial and industrial uses in this area. The applicable regional plan is the Our Missoula City Growth Policy, which recommends the land use designation of residential medium-high in this area, which is a density of 12 to 23 dwelling units per acre. The zoning districts that most closely align with this density recommendation are RT 2.7, RM 2.7, RM2, and RM3. Areas designated as residential medium-high are areas close to the core of the community where services and city infrastructure already exist. The growth policy strongly emphasizes a focus inward approach to development, which means encouraging denser development in areas that have existing infrastructure such as roads and sidewalks, water and sewer service, and access to active transportation options such as bike paths and mountain line. It also covers proximity to services such as schools and shopping, and a central location close to the urban core. These pictures are included to show you Catlin Street, looking both north and south. The one on the bottom shows the condition of the sidewalk and the curb in front of the parcel that we are talking about tonight. In speaking with the city engineer, we asked if he believed that this infrastructure was adequate to accommodate the traffic that is currently on Catlin and any that would be generated by this project, and he thought that the street was adequately dimensioned both for existing traffic and for future increases. This slide is to take a look at the surrounding area and some of the things that are pretty close to the property that we are looking at. It is 1 block from Mountain Line's Route 2, which is one of the 15-minute service schedules. It is, as we've seen, the Milwaukee Trail is on the parcel. It's within 2 blocks of a grocery store, a school, a coffee shop, a bowling alley, a brewery, a laundry, and more. It's within 1 mile of a park and a pool and a little over a mile to downtown. Since all of the growth policy criteria apply to this location, it's a prime location for the density of development recommended by the growth policy. This area zoning map shows the zoning districts in the area around the parcel. The tan areas that are sort of here and here are RM 2.7 and RT 2.7 in gray beside that, both of which fit into the medium-high density residential development category and could have up to 16 dwelling units per acre. The RM1-45 area and the yellow, sort of down at the bottom, it's around here, is high density, and that can go up to as many as 43 dwelling units per acre. The red, the blue, and the pink areas around there are commercial districts. RM 2.7 was applied to this area specifically to encourage denser residential development here and also to act as a transition zone where commercial and industrial uses that existed in the county at the time of annexation could transition to higher density residential development in this area over time. That's what we've seen happening in the area. I'd also like to point out that after the adoption of the city's updated growth policy in 2015, some new zoning districts were added to the growth policy, with RM 2.7 being one of those districts. Before the creation of RM2, the only zoning district that fit into the medium density category was RM or RT 2.7, which allowed for 16 units per acre. RM2 with the maximum possible density of 21 units per acre was created specifically so that areas so zoned could get closer to the high end of the land use policy recommendation of 12 to 23 dwelling units per acre. Achieving that upper density was the reason for its creation. This is the zoning map which shows the parcel we're talking about. It's on the edge of the RM 2.7 district. And on the other side of Catlin in the red, you can see the zoning changes to C2-4, which is community commercial. A little bit to the south, there is another commercial zone with C1-4 and some B2-2. Those are both commercial. And then there are various transitions in this area between residential and commercial districts, and also the density of residential that can happen here. This slide compares the current zoning with the requested zoning for this parcel. And you can see that both RM 2.7 and RM2 permit all building types. They have the same minimum parcel area of 3,000 square feet and the same area per unit of 2,700 square feet. The setbacks are the same. There is a difference in the height. RM 2.7, which is the current district, allows 30 feet or up to 35 with a roof pitch of 8/12. RM2, by contrast, allows 45 feet in height. The other difference is the units per acre, which in the current RM 2.7 is 16, and RM2 allows, it's actually 21 rather than 22. I rounded up, sorry. These are some photos of the site, which is vacant now. One is looking west, so if you're standing on Catlin and looking towards the back of the site, that's what you'll see. The other one is standing at the back of the site and looking towards Catlin, and you can see the apartment buildings that are currently across the street from this. This item went before the planning board on the 20th of June. The planning board discussed at that time the adequacy of infrastructure, which we addressed with the city engineer. He believes that it is adequate. They talked about the parking requirement and whether it would be different. The parking requirement is the same in both zoning districts, as in a larger number of units will require larger parking or a larger number of parking spaces. And they also discussed whether the height limit was appropriate. Their vote and the recommendation, with 8 members present, was 1 abstention due to a possible conflict of interest, and 7 members voted in favor of approval of this request. These are the review criteria to consider with the proposed change in zoning. Whether it's in accordance with the growth policy, whether there are adequate public services and transportation in the area, whether it promotes compatible urban growth, whether it promotes the public health and safety, and if it is in keeping with the district character and suitability. The proposed rezone complies with the goals and objectives of the growth policy, as well as its land use designation for this area of residential medium-high density with 12 to 23 dwelling units per acre. The rezoning is in an area with ready access to adequate motorized and non-motorized infrastructure, along with existing sewer and water access. The rezone proposes development that is compatible with the urban growth in this area, and it accords with the promotion of health and safety by being in an area with existing and adequate public services, including police, fire, and emergency. There's access to water and sewer, plus proximity to schools, parks, and Missoula's trail system, and other public amenities. The rezoning is suitable for the subject property and gives reasonable consideration to the character of the district and the uses on the surrounding parcels. Finally, and as a result, both the Planning Board and staff recommends adoption of an ordinance to rezone this property from RM2 to from RM 2.7 to RM2 based on the findings of fact in the staff report. Thank you, and if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. And with that, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone care to comment on this proposed rezoning? Mr. Walser-Skirchen, please.
Mr. Engen, Mr. Nugent, council members, good evening. Try this. Yes, I wanted to show some pictures. Unfortunately, I can't unless you send it back to committee. I wanted to show you this neighborhood and to visualize how something that big would come across in that area, on this parcel. It would be very close to some historical homes, and if it's 45 feet high. My main concern is the height more than anything else, that it would be overpowering. So right now I'll just read my comment and then we'll see. My name is Kim Walter-Skirchen, Kim Walter-Skirchen. There it is. I live at 115 South Garfield Street, right across from the Catlin property. I ask you to deny this rezone, this single rezone, because it will hurt the future development of my neighborhood. I ask you to implement your growth policy not piece by piece, but as a master plan which addresses our infrastructure needs and which strengthens and protects the diverse character of our neighborhood, the quality of life of our residents, and its vast opportunities as an arts and crafts center of Missoula. I like the idea of this property being developed, but at a density of 16 units per acre. This density has served our neighborhood well and allowed multi- and single-family homes to coexist peacefully. Mr. Khoury can already build 22 units on its property. That would be the Burn Street Commons plus 5 townhomes. All infill and growth policy goals can be met at current density levels. Even a higher density of 22 units per acre might be doable, but if you approve this rezone without a plan, you are signing a blank check which will allow one or more 45 feet high apartment buildings from going in close proximity to our village-like neighborhood along Trail and Garfield Street. All built at 16 units per acre, and it has grown over the years around several historic homes. I see generally 3 great dangers for our neighborhood. Allowing apartment buildings at 45 feet height in close proximity to single-family homes will change the feel of the area and make the apartment presence overpowering. It will diminish the value of adjacent properties and limit what neighboring landowners can build. 2, eliminating green spaces of big apartment complexes like Wolf Glen will not only take away outdoor gathering and playground opportunities for the residents, but it will also eliminate space buffers between large apartment buildings and smaller homes. Number 3, ever-increasing densities will eventually turn workshops and warehouses, which house all kinds of businesses, craftsmen, and artists into apartment silos as well. Please help us prevent such an apartment-only future. Please help us thrive and survive as a diverse and powerful part of Missoula. And I think these pictures would have shown that if it's not under that height, it could be, if it tapers down, it would be very visual how it could work at that density, but how it also could lead everything in the wrong direction. Well, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Walter Skirchin.
Hello, my name is Paul Chamberlain, Chamberlin. I'm really sorry that so many of you and on the planning board have rejected the values and principles that led to the current zoning. Zoning intended to bring planning and foresight and an expectation for those of us who believed in these values, invested, and made our homes here. I do believe that with these changes you are crossing a line. Kim developed those well. And after we cross this line, apartments, tall apartments, will become the rule, and therefore diversity, character, livability go away. I've already shared with you solid examples demonstrating these negative changes are already happening. There are many more examples I did not use time to illuminate, but it is very sad and seems so predictable and therefore intentional. So please vote against this rezoning and help us work to keep our neighborhood character as it is. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. Anyone else care to speak this evening? Yes, sir.
Is this the appropriate time for Mr. Corey and myself to speak, or would
Sure.
that be? Okay.
We'll go one at a time.
Go ahead, Damien.
I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. I'm sure we'd all rather be outside than in here, but my name is Damien Corey, and I just had a couple things to say before Mr. Morgan speaks. As being born and raised in Missoula, Montana, I'm the last person that wants to overbuild this place, but from a fiscal standpoint and being in the construction business for 23 years, it just doesn't quite pencil at the RM 2.7, and this is my third time up here, and I keep hearing the things about, well, it's going to be this big, and it's going to be in the traffic. It's 1.4 acres, and we're only adding 8 units. It's not what it's perceived to be. It's not a huge bump. I'm not asking for a high density, which would literally be Corso 50 feet away. I believe that R.2 or the R2 is a great transition from high density down to 2.7. I have multifamily around this property. I have some small commercials right against the property as well. What I would like to do is let some people enjoy the Milwaukee Trail. It's fantastic. I think that's one of the best things about that part of town in Missoula. And what I would like to do is build some nicer, like 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. And I've got that because my parents are both born and raised in Missoula, and they've come across a handful of their friends that are recently widowed or have moved down south but want to be a part of Missoula in the summers and don't want the big house on the hill or a house in the university with all the maintenance, and they really can't find a nice place with an elevator that has a garage to keep their roots in Missoula. And I think that's a niche that hasn't been explored in Missoula. There's some places up the Rattlesnake, but a 1.5 bedroom is like $1,600 a month. And I guess that's kind of my angle on the property, is it's walkable distance to a lot of things, and which would be perfect for some older Missoulian residents.
Thank you, Mr. Corey.
And then Mr. Morgan.
Good evening. I'm Michael Morgan. I'm an architect, Hoffman Morgan Associates, representing Damien Corey on this property. And I just want to say that I'm real excited to be here on behalf of RM2 zone. I just think that's a great thing that as a result of the growth policy that the city's created. And I'm happy to be here on focusing inward on a project or a property that I think is perfect for it. RM2 is a difficult zone, and I think that's why we see a lot of those areas not really developed yet. It's just simply too high of a development cost and land costs with too low of a density to get a return. There is some exception, though, and there's one I know of. And it's worth referencing for a couple of reasons that I'll get to. And that is an RM 2.7. It's at the dead end of Trail Street, and it's near Damien's property. It's west a few lots from his. And it's a development that started in 2010, and the developer bought 3.47 acres at a good price, because that was when the economy was in a little bit of a different circumstance. And it had a trailer park on it that was facing the end of its habitability. And it's also along the trail, Milwaukee Trail. The rent from those trailers helped carry the cost of the land for the developer while he slowly phased development on the property. And at that same time, the townhome exemption came into play, and when that became adopted, he utilized it and was able to sell 10 townhouses on that property, which again helped him cover those land costs that the low density just didn't, he couldn't equate into his pro forma. So it was good. It was a good thing. So the remainder of the development consists of 46 apartments. So it's a pretty big lot, you know, right in the middle of the city. So that created a different story for him that's really unique as well. It has a lot of mature landscaping on it, so he was allowed to create this sort of mountain village feeling within the heart of Missoula. And it took him 7 years to develop, though. So it took a real special developer to be able to pull that off. So RM2 faces still some of those same difficult challenges, but at 21 units an acre instead of 16 at RM 2.7, at this economic climate of today, I think that it allows some exception and some special places to occur, like Trail Street was allowed to do. And that allows for these special, something special as I call it, that the city of Missoula, the people, voiced during those work sessions during the growth policy. And they were heard and recorded. And I think this is a perfect place to apply RM2. The people want something walkable, bikeable, close in, affordable, and focused inward. So thanks for RM2. We're excited, really. It's a good thing. And at 60,517 square feet is what the land area of this property we're talking about today is. It allows for 30 units instead of 22. So we're increasing by 8 units. That's just enough to really allow, again, something special like we've seen some exceptions in the past. And it's also why it's perfect is it's a perfect place to transition from RM 2.7 to directly across the street, which is commercial use, high density. There's a lot of growth going on right there. It's a perfect place for transition. And I'll just end with one of the planning board members, when we were before planning board, commented that if this location isn't the best place for RM2, where else would be? And I agree. And the planning board seemed to agree. They voted unanimously for this. So I think this is a really good place for RM2, and look forward to hopefully your support and approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Anyone else this evening on the proposal to rezone? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions from council members? Mr. DeBari?
Mr. Corey, you had mentioned that this is 8 additional units, and I was curious if you had an idea yet of how many units you might be planning for this property.
We haven't gotten that far, but I would like to put 30, which is the 8 more on it, to get the cash flow to make it worthwhile doing. Yeah.
Further questions? Seeing none. Mr. DeBari?
I move we adopt an ordinance to rezone Lot 5A of Glen Addition, lots 1, 5, and 6, that's 60,517 square feet, in Section 20, Township 13 North, Range 19 West, a platted subdivision in Missoula County, Montana, according to the official recorded plat thereof, located on Catlin Street between 2nd and Wyoming Streets, from RM 2.7 residential to RM 2 residential. But I believe that should be R2, is that correct, or RM2? Got it, thanks.
Okay. That motion is in order. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. DeBari?
Thanks. So I had an opportunity to go back through the neighborhood again recently, and I just wanted to respectfully take exception to Mr. Chamberlain's comments that this is an intentional degradation of the neighborhood. I really don't feel that that's the case. I really like the eclectic mix of uses that are existing in this area. There's all kinds of things that are taking place there, residential, commercial, and industrial. And I see this opportunity to achieve one of the visions of our growth policy as a way to increase the diversity of that neighborhood and add to its character. And I think that the investment that people are making in this neighborhood really helps make it a more livable part of the community, a more vibrant part of the community. And I think that, you know, we're trying to be very thoughtful in how we approach the implementation of our growth policy and how we choose to use land in this community. Mr. Walter Skirchen had mentioned in the past that, and alluded to this evening, that it would be nice to have a more holistic view about how we implement the growth policy and do rezonings. And I'm sure you have an appreciation for what that actually takes to, it's a very complicated endeavor to rezone an entire portion of the community because of the amount of work that goes into it and trying to bring a huge part of the community, like a neighborhood, along with regard to the rezoning. And so although I agree with you that it's an important way of looking at how we use land and apply land use designations to do a council-initiated or a larger zoning effort, we can't, in the meanwhile, reject the opportunity of a landowner to come in and petition for a rezoning request on their land, especially when it does meet the intention of the growth policy. So while I agree with you on one hand, I also disagree with you that it is an appropriate request for a landowner to come in and make a request. We have gone through a lengthy public process with regard to what we envision happening in parts of our community, and this rezoning happens to fit with what that larger community vision is. So I am going to support the motion, and I think that, as I mentioned before, that ultimately what is happening in this neighborhood is that it's seeing the kind of investment and activity that I think will ultimately benefit not only the neighborhood but the community.
Further discussion? Mr. Wilkins?
So I'm not going to support this rezoning, and I want to remind you, we're talking about rezoning. We're not talking about what's going to go on the ground because we don't know. So what you got to figure when you rezone something is the max is going to go on the ground, whatever the max of that zoning might be. I sympathize with the neighbors, but that's not my only reason. My other reason is I don't think the infrastructure in that area is adequate to keep putting infill in there. Wyoming Street, there's a problem with it. It narrows down, it gets a little wider. People are parking in the right-of-way. Trail Street's kind of a small street, not that wide. So the streets really need some work. I don't know about how the sewer lines are. I don't know how the water lines are over there. but I have a feeling there might be some problems with that too, being that that trailer court you mentioned, I used to plow it, and they had sewage problems in there when I was doing that. I don't know, they might have been fixed over the years, but anyway, we're talking about rezoning. We're not talking about how many buildings, how high the buildings are gonna go. They can go the max 45 feet if that's what the zoning calls for. So I think at this time, it's not feasible for that to go in there until some other infrastructure stuff is done.
Ms. Armstrong?
So I will be supporting this. I live in a fledgling blighted neighborhood in a beautiful townhome, and it's because the developer took the leap and put some beautiful structures there, and I think it was the beginning of that neighborhood turning around and gaining some interest, and I want that to happen in this neighborhood. I also think that the infrastructure is coming with Russell Street being redeveloped and energized, and with us owning the water company, I think the sewer lines will be fixed or at least on the radar, so I will be supporting this project.
Ms. West?
I just wanted to point out that the existing density already falls in line with what is proposed for the density in this area and the growth policy. It falls in that spectrum already, and I agree that that there are some overall connectivity and transportation issues that really I think need to be resolved before there is additional density added into this area. So I will be standing with John and not supporting this.
Ms. Marler?
This is in Ward 6, just a few blocks on the other side of 3rd Street from my house. I spend a fair amount of time, I think I've probably trespassed on your property, accessing the trail. I run on the trail a lot, the Milwaukee Trail. I'm going to support this project. This is not like the rezoning we had a few weeks ago, which I also supported because I felt it was a modest increase. That was adding some more apartment units behind some existing apartment units on Wyoming Street, a few blocks off of Catlin. This is on Catlin, just a couple blocks from 3rd Street. Catlin was redone not too long ago when the Housing Authority project went in across the street, and a new connector street, Milwaukee Way, connected Catlin Street to Russell. It's literally right across the street from some apartments, and not including the Corso apartments. It's like 3 blocks, maybe 4 blocks from a bus stop. It just seems like a good place to do this. The last time this came up several years ago, I did not support it, but we hadn't seen all this major improvement on Catlin and Milwaukee at that time. And I don't even think we had the Milwaukee Trail then. I think that was just a hope that we would get it, and now we have it. So I'm going to support it.
Ms. Bentley?
I'm going to support the project. I think it looks really nice. The townhomes are really nice, and I also feel like this chicken egg thing with development and infrastructure, I don't fall on the side of saying that we need to wait for all the infrastructure to be perfect before we have new development. One of the major ways we see infrastructure put in is by private developers, and it's not at the expense of taxpayers, and that's great. And so to say that we shouldn't allow any development until all the infrastructure is perfect is saying that the taxpayers have to pay for all the infrastructure before private development goes in. That doesn't make sense to me at all. So I'm going to support it. I think that it's going to be an improvement. I also live near here. I live right on the other side of Russell Street. I use the Milwaukee Trail. I think it's a little bit sketchy sometimes in that area of the Milwaukee Trail, and I think this will be a major improvement. I think I'll feel a lot safer walking in that area. So I think it's an improvement, and I think it'll be good for the neighborhood. Thanks.
Further discussion? Seeing none, we've had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
On the rezone, Bentley? Bentley votes yes. Dabari? Yes. Dabari votes yes. Hedall? Yes. Hedall votes yes. Hess? Yes. Hess votes yes. Jones? Yes. Jones votes yes. Marlar? Yes. Marlar votes yes. Swaney? Yes. Swaney votes yes. Von Lossberg? Yes. Von Lossberg votes yes. West? No. West votes no. And Wilkins? No. Wilkins votes no. So we've got 9 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 absent.
And the rezoning is approved. Our second public hearing this evening. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Armstrong needs to vote.
I apologize.
Thank you. And the rezoning passes. Our second public hearing this evening is on the FY 2018 budget for the City of Missoula. This will open the public hearing process, which will continue until council approves the budget. And our staff report this evening comes from Ms. Griffin.
Hi, Lee Griffin, City Finance. I'm here to provide the staff report for the opening of the fiscal year 18 budget public hearing. The city's budget process begins with a strategic goal setting with council in January. This helps set priorities to be considered in the annual budget. In early spring, there's a review of the current fiscal year's budget performance and a multi-year analysis of revenue and expenditure trends. The mayor, CAO, and finance meet to review the data and discuss the parameters for the upcoming fiscal year's budget. These parameters are then shared with the department heads to inform the creation of their operating budgets and new requests. After departments create their budgets and new requests, there is an internal review phase by the capital improvement plan and budget teams and the administration. Within the framework of the city's financial capacity, city council priorities, and departmental needs assessments, budget requests are reviewed and the city operating budget takes shape. The mayor presents the budget to city council in a budget committee of the whole meeting for their review, amendment, and approval. This document on the screen is called the New Requests and Tax Scenarios. The items running down the left are a list of the new requests for FY18. If a new request was deemed required to meet a contractual obligation or federal, state, or legal requirement, the requested dollar amount is shown in the columns under the mayor's budget. The first one that says REQ shows the impact on taxes to meet that requirement. The second column shows the dollar funding for requests that are provided by non-tax sources. And the third column that says funded and 3.81% is for each new request that is being recommended for inclusion in the budget. Our house graphic shows estimated tax implications to the baseline budget and the recommended budget. These figures are calculated using the taxable value on a house for sale for $255,000 last month that I just pulled it up on a realtor website and checked that taxable value against the county's records. Because the city does not receive taxable value information from the Department of Revenue until early August. So we have to estimate these figures during the budget process. We look at prior year values, economic indicators around Missoula, and preliminary information from the Department of Revenue to estimate what the dollar value of a mill will be for FY18. That is why the tax increase percentage is an estimate. After this information is presented to City Council, the Council Budget Committee holds weekly meetings to review the budget and new requests, receive presentations from staff and outside agencies requesting funding, and deliberate the budget. We currently have about 4.5 hours scheduled in a split committee meeting this coming Wednesday, and depending on the outcome of that meeting, Council may elect to adopt the budget on the following public hearing, which is on July 24th. Then in August, after we receive those certified taxable values from the Department of Revenue, we will bring the resolutions to set tax levies and various assessments to City Council for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. With that, I will open the public hearing once again with the admonition that the hearing process will continue and there are opportunities to discuss the budget as well during Budget Committee of the Whole meetings, which occur on Wednesdays. Any comment this evening on the proposed budget? All right. The hearing will remain open. Questions or comments from council members this evening? Ms. Marler?
I want to thank Ms. Griffing for the presentation, and if there's going to be a staff presentation next Monday, maybe it would be possible to show the total. I think it's already in one of the reports, but you know, I love the pie chart that says all the money in and all the money out by category. Love those. So if we could have them, it would be great. Just to give the public an understanding of like a bird's eye view of the budget.
Thank you. Anything else on the budget this evening? All right, we will move on then to communications from the mayor. I have none this evening. There's been all the communication we need tonight, as far as I can tell. We'll begin general comments from council members this evening with Mr. Von Lossberg and Ms. Hedall. Mr. DeBari?
I was just going to say this as a part of the budget. I want to thank staff for all their help, and I want to encourage members of the public to come and share their thoughts on this during committee and at the public hearing. For folks in the audience or at home who can't see the audience, there are 9 people in attendance, 2 of whom are with the media. So if you have an interest in the city budget, this is your opportunity to come and talk about it and let us know what you think. And I hope there's more participation this year than there was last year. I think maybe only 5 people talked in the entire process.
Ms. Marler?
I'll echo those sentiments, and specifically it's helpful if people have things that they things to take out of or add to the budget is more helpful than saying I hate this budget. That's not, we can't do a lot with that kind of feedback, although we will of course hear it. So specifics are helpful. We have 4 hours of budget committee this Wednesday, 2 hours before lunch, 2 hours after lunch, and then unlimited amount of time next Monday when the public hearing is open.
Ms. Armstrong?
Shall I say hello to my nephews who might be watching this? They're visiting from Texas this week. They were going to come visit, and I'm very thankful they did not come this evening.
Mr. Wilkins?
So I'd like to echo what John DeBari and Marilyn said. 12 years on this council, and I bet you I can count on both hands how many people have come and talked about the budget during budget season. But I don't have as many hairs on my head of people that complain about it. But if you don't come and talk about it and let us know what you're thinking, I don't know how you expect us to do any more than what we're doing. So that's something that has always kind of got me, because budget season's pretty darn important. And there's a couple things more on my mind. The second thing is this Sunday, my twin grandsons will turn 2, and they're testing our patience already. The third thing is I'm going to go see my son in Missouri, and I'll be gone approximately 3 weeks, and see my granddaughter there, enjoy the moist, hot weather. Thanks.
Mr. Hess? Ms. Jones? Ms. West?
I just wanted to put it out there that this Saturday night, the outdoor cinema is showing Beetlejuice, and it will start roughly around 9:30, which is when it starts being dark enough to see the screen. So that's that.
Ms. Bentley, what's happening at the fairgrounds?
There's a fair coming up. And actually the horse show for the fair is this weekend. We don't have enough space to have the horses at the fair, so the horse show judging will be this weekend. I actually wanted to use the time today, and I should have brought it up last week, but I wanted to mention Marty Rabine, who's our clerk and recorder, and who has worked so hard for the city council and the city of Missoula for many, many years. She's absent tonight because her mom passed, and I know that we're all thinking about her and appreciating what an amazing job she does on council, and I know that it's so hard when people pass suddenly. So we're thinking about you, Marty, and we miss you, and you know, you're in our thoughts.
Ms. Sweeney.
I've also been thinking about Marty, but I also wanted to just offer my condolences to the family of Michael Hewankorn. He was a young man that passed very unexpectedly and was one of my husband's colleagues and just a really kind person. So just offer my family's condolences to his family. Thank you. Much gracias.
We have no committee reports this evening. Are there any additional items to be referred? None of those. We have no new business. Any miscellaneous communications, reports, petitions, or announcements? Seeing none of those, I am, as always, ladies and gentlemen, grateful for your service. We will be adjourned.